The human explorer moved slowly through the wreck of the alien ship. His boots touched metal that was bent and broken. Sparks danced on the floor, and smoke rose from cracks in the walls. The smell of burnt wires and strange chemicals filled the air. He held a small light in his hand, and its beam cut through the darkness. Every sound made him alert. A drip of liquid, a hiss of steam, the distant groan of metal. Each one made his heart beat faster. He had entered many ruins before, but this place felt different. Something heavy seemed to press down on him, as if the shadows themselves were watching. He stopped, listening. The silence was deep, broken only by the faint crackle of fire. Then he heard it, so soft at first that he thought it was his imagination, a voice weak and broken whispering from the darkness. "I can't breathe." He froze. His hand tightened on the light, and he swung it toward the sound. The beam showed twisted walls and collapsed doors, but no living being. Still the voice came again, louder now, desperate. "I can't breathe." The human's throat went dry. He was alone on this ship, or at least he thought he was. No other rescue team had come this far. So who was crying in the dark? And why did the words sound almost human? His heart pounded in his chest. He took a step forward, then another. The sound guided him through broken corridors. Every step made the voice clearer. It was not a machine or an echo. It was a real person, trapped somewhere inside. Finally, he reached a sealed chamber. It was a strange, round pod built into the wall. Alien symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Through a small, fogged window, he saw a shape moving weakly inside. The voice came from there, muffled and desperate. "I can't breathe." The human pressed his hand against the glass. Inside was a woman. Her skin shimmered faintly, with colors he had never seen on a human. Her eyes were closed, her body weak. She looked like she was drowning in air, struggling for every breath. His mind raced. Why was she here? Was she a prisoner, or was this some kind of alien life support? But there was no time to think. Her breaths grew shorter, weaker. If he did nothing, she would die. He searched the pod for controls. Alien symbols glowed on panels. Some buttons flickered red, warning lights flashed. He had no training with this technology. One wrong move could kill her, but if he did nothing, she had no chance at all. He wiped sweat from his brow and tried to focus. The pod was locked with heavy latches. He grabbed his toolkit, pulling out a plasma cutter. Sparks flew as he cut into the metal. The sound of grinding filled the chamber. The woman's hand pressed weakly against the glass, her fingers trembling. His own heart ached at the sight. "I'm coming," he whispered, even though she could not hear. He cut deeper, the heat burning his gloves. At last the lock snapped open with a sharp crack. The pod hissed as air escaped. He pulled the cover upward, the metal groaning as it lifted. And then he saw her face, pale, beautiful in a strange alien way, but filled with pain. Her lips parted, gasping. Her eyes opened just enough to meet his. They glowed faintly, like stars trapped inside. In that moment, his heart stopped. Not from fear, but from shock. She was alien, yes, but she also looked so human. Too human. Her body shivered, each breath shallow. He quickly pulled off his oxygen mask and placed it over her face. She inhaled sharply as if life rushed back into her lungs. Her hand grabbed his wrist, holding it tightly. For the first time, she spoke clearly, though her voice was weak. "Thank you." The human felt a strange mix of relief and confusion. Who was she? Why was she locked inside this death chamber? And why did her eyes look at him with such human emotion? Fear, hope, and something more. He looked around. The ship groaned again, metal shaking as if it would collapse at any moment. Smoke thickened in the air. He knew he had only two choices: leave her behind and escape alone, or carry her out. But as he looked at her fragile form, still gripping his wrist as if her life depended on it, he knew he could not leave her. He bent down and lifted her carefully into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, fragile as glass. Her head rested weakly against his chest, Her breathing was shallow but steady now with his mask. The ship creaked again, a violent shudder echoing through the corridor. If he stayed here any longer, both of them would die. But even as he turned to leave, a thought haunted him. If she was trapped here, it meant someone wanted her to die. And if that was true, then saving her life might be the most dangerous thing he had ever done. The human held the alien woman in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, each breath a fragile thread. His oxygen mask gave her life, but her body was still weak, trembling. As if she had been frozen in fear for days, he looked at her again and his heart shook. Her face was not like the other aliens he had seen before. She was different. Her features were strange, yes. Skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light, eyes that glowed softly even when half closed. But her expression, the curve of her lips, the fear in her eyes, those were human, too human, he whispered to himself. This should not be possible. The wreck around them groaned again. Metal bent and cracked. Fires burned in broken wires. Time was running out. He lifted her gently, adjusting the mask over her mouth. Her hand still gripped his wrist tightly. As if letting go meant death, she tried to speak, her voice only a whisper. Don't leave me. The words pierced him. She was terrified, but also trusting him. A stranger. A human. Why him? Why had she clung to life until now, only to survive because of his help? The questions burned in his mind, but there was no time for answers. He moved quickly through the corridor, carrying her out of the sealed chamber. Each step echoed in the silence of the alien ship. But then something strange caught his eye. The pod she had been locked in still glowed faintly. Symbols shifted across its surface, red lights flashing in warning. He stopped, staring at it. This was no normal life support pod. It was not meant to keep her alive. It was meant to kill her slowly. His stomach tightened. Someone had locked her inside. Someone wanted her gone. And whoever it was had done this on purpose. He looked down at her again. Her eyes opened slightly, and she met his gaze, weak, trembling, but with something deep inside her look. Something like shame, something like fear, as if she knew a secret he could not yet understand. The human whispered softly, "Who did this to you?" But she only shook her head weakly. Her lips formed one word, almost silent. Enemies. The ship shuddered violently, pulling him back to reality. The walls groaned as if the wreck itself wanted to bury them alive. He could not stay here any longer. He adjusted her in his arms and pressed forward. The exit was still far, and danger waited outside. As he moved through the twisted corridors, he felt her try to speak again. Her voice was thin, but her words were clear enough to chill his blood. They will come for me. He stopped, staring down at her, the way she said it. Not if they come, but when. It was certain. It was only a matter of time. The human's mind spun. If she was important enough that enemies wanted her dead, then saving her might have just placed him in the middle of something far greater than he imagined. And yet, as he looked at her fragile body in his arms, he knew he could not abandon her. Not now. Not ever. He reached a junction, and his light flickered. Darkness pressed in on him. And in that moment, the ship seemed to whisper back at him, a cold reminder that some secrets were better left buried. But it was too late. He had already uncovered one secret that should have stayed hidden. The woman in his arms was proof. She was not just an alien prisoner, not just a victim. She was something more, something dangerous, something precious, and he knew deep down that whoever had left her to die in that chamber would not stop now. They would come for her. They would come for him. And they would not stop until she was gone forever. He quickened his pace, every step filled with urgency. The exit was close, but his mind was far away. What was she? Why did she look so human? And why, when she looked at him with those glowing eyes, did he feel as if he had just stepped into the middle of a war he did not understand? Her breathing grew steady with his mask, but her body remained weak. Her hand trembled against his chest, but still she clung to him, And in her eyes, even through her fear, there was a flicker of something else, a spark of hope, a silent message that maybe, just maybe, this human stranger could change everything. The corridor opened into a larger chamber. The light from his lamp fell on shattered consoles and broken weapons. This had been a command center once. Now it was nothing but wreckage, yet among the ruins. He saw something that froze him in place, a mark burned into the wall. It was a symbol he recognized. Not alien. Human. The mark of a secret unit, a shadow force that operated beyond the laws of Earth. He had seen it once before. Long ago, and it haunted him still. What was it doing here inside this alien ship, and what connection did it have to the dying woman in his arms? The ship groaned again, shaking the chamber. He tightened his grip around her and pushed forward. Questions could wait. Survival could not. Still, his heart pounded. For he knew the truth now. This was not an accident. This was not a simple rescue. This was the beginning of something much larger. Something that would shake not just him, not just her, but perhaps the entire galaxy. And as the smoke filled the air and the walls closed in, he realized one thing. By lifting that cover, by saving her life, he had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The human carried the alien woman through the wreckage. Her body was light, almost weightless, but every step made him feel the weight of his choice. Her breathing was weak but steady now. Thanks to his oxygen mask, her head rested against his shoulder. Her glowing eyes half closed and still. Even in this broken state, she would not let go of his wrist. The silence between them was heavy. He did not know her name, her people, or her story. Yet in that silence, something unspoken passed between them, a fragile bond born not from words but from survival itself. The ship trembled again, metal screaming as if the wreck wanted to bury them alive. He hurried through the corridors, the flicker of his light showing shattered panels and pools of black liquid. Every corner felt like a trap. Every shadow whispered danger. He stopped once to catch his breath. Her hand clung tighter to him, weak but desperate. She opened her lips. As if to speak, no sound came out, only a painful gasp. Her chest rose and fell, fighting for air. Her eyes searched his face, asking for something he could not yet understand. The human spoke softly, his voice rough but steady. "Save your strength, I'll get you out of here." She blinked slowly as if trying to believe him. Her glowing eyes reflected the light. There was fear in them, yes, but also something else, a faint trust. Trust in a man she had never met. Before he pushed forward again, but then the corridor split into two paths. To the left, a broken passage filled with smoke. To the right, a narrow tunnel with sparks raining down. He hesitated, unsure which way would lead them out. And then he heard it, a sound that froze his blood. Voices, not echoes of the ship. Real voices, low, harsh, speaking in an alien tongue he did not recognize. They were close, too close. The woman's eyes widened, her body tensed. She shook her head weakly, whispering one word. No. The human felt her fear through that single word. Whoever these voices belonged to, they were the same ones who had locked her in the death pod. He pressed his back to the wall, holding her close. The voices drew nearer, footsteps echoing. Shadows stretched across the corridor ahead. He had no weapon strong enough to face a patrol. He could not fight and protect her at the same time. His mind raced, and then he saw it. A hatch above, half broken, leading into a maintenance crawl space. Climbed quickly, one arm holding her tightly, the other pulling himself up. The metal groaned under his weight, but he forced himself through. Inside, the crawl space was narrow and dark. He crouched low, holding her close as they listened. The patrol moved beneath them. Their footsteps echoed, their strange words filling the silence. One stopped, looking around suspiciously. The human held his breath. The alien woman pressed her face against his chest, hiding from the sound. Her small frame trembled, but her grip on his wrist never loosened. Minutes passed like hours. At last, the voices faded, footsteps moving away. The human let out a slow breath. The danger was not gone, but they had survived one more moment. He looked down at her again. Her eyes were open now, staring up at him in the dim light. They were filled with tears, but not just of fear. There was something deeper there. Relief, gratitude, and a bond stronger than words. She whispered softly, her voice fragile. "You saved me." The human shook his head. "I only opened a door, but..." She pressed her hand to his chest, weak but firm. "No, you chose." Her words struck him harder than any weapon could. She was right. He could have left her to die in that pod. He could have turned away when he first heard her voice. But he hadn't. And now, whether he liked it or not, their fates were tied together. The ship groaned again, dust falling from above. He knew they could not stay here much longer. He crawled forward through the narrow passage, carrying her carefully. Her head rested against him, her breathing soft, but steady, and in that moment of silence he felt it, a strange bond forming between them, not of words, not of promises, but of survival, trust, and something even deeper. At last, the crawl space opened into another chamber. The air was clearer here, but the wreck showed signs of battle. Burn marks scarred the walls, broken weapons lay scattered, and in the middle of the floor, a shattered flagpole lay bent, its banner torn. It was not alien. It was human. The human froze, staring. His pulse raced. What was a human flag doing here inside an alien warship? And more importantly, what had humans been doing with her people? The alien woman stirred in his arms. Her glowing eyes followed his gaze. When she saw the torn human banner, her face turned pale. She closed her eyes tightly, as if hiding a secret she could not bear to speak. The human felt the weight of the moment. This was no simple rescue. This was something far bigger, something dangerous. The woman in his arms was not just a victim. She was the key to a secret hidden between humans and aliens. A secret that could change everything. The silence between them grew heavier, but even in that silence, the bond was there. She trusted him, and he could not turn back now. The human pressed forward through the wreck. The alien woman was weak in his arms, her breath shallow but steady. Her glowing eyes opened for only seconds at a time before closing again. She trusted him completely now, her trembling hand still gripping his wrist as if it was the only thing keeping her alive. But the silence of the ship was broken. Far behind them, metallic footsteps echoed through the halls. Harsh voices carried through the smoke. Sharp and commanding, the hunters had arrived, and they were not here to rescue. They were here to kill. The human's heart pounded. The patrol he had avoided earlier had called for others. Now the ship was alive with movement. Every corridor he passed, every door he opened, the sound of boots and weapons drew closer. He was not alone anymore. The woman stirred weakly, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "They will kill me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "And they will kill you too." Her words cut him like a blade. She was not exaggerating. Whoever these soldiers were, they did not want her alive. And anyone who helped her would meet the same fate. The human looked down at her pale face. She was fragile, but she was also important. Too important to leave behind. He adjusted his grip on her and kept moving. He had no choice. He could not abandon her now. The wreck shifted around them, groaning as if it were alive. Fires crackled in the distance, sparks rained from broken wires. The human pushed through narrow passages and fallen beams. Every second, counted every heartbeat louder than the last. Then it happened. A beam of light flashed across the corridor ahead. Voices shouted. He ducked back, pressing against the wall. Shadows moved, armored figures marching closer, weapons ready. The hunters had found their trail. The alien woman clung tighter to him, her glowing eyes wide with fear. "They will not stop," she whispered. "They know who I am." Her words filled his chest with questions. Who was she? Why did she matter so much? But there was no time for answers. The footsteps grew louder, closer. He had to move. He darted down another corridor, moving fast despite the weight in his arms. The ship shook violently, dust falling from above. The sound of the hunters followed him, their boots like thunder in the dark. He pushed through a half-open door and entered a wide chamber. The ceiling was torn open, and through the cracks, he could see faint stars. Cold air rushed in, carrying the smell of smoke and burning fuel. This could be a way out, but the hunters were closing in. He placed the alien woman gently against the wall. "Stay here. Don't move," he whispered, her glowing eyes locked on his face, full of fear. "Don't leave me," she begged, her voice trembling. "I won't," he promised, though his heart raced. He picked up a broken piece of metal from the ground. Heavy, sharp enough to use as a weapon. It was not much, but it was better than nothing. The voices grew louder, echoing in the chamber. Shadows stretched long as soldiers entered from the far side. Their weapons glowed, their armor shining in the dim light. The human's grip tightened on the metal shard. He was outnumbered, outgunned, but he stood between them and her. He had no choice but to fight. The first soldier spotted him, shouting a command. A blast of energy shot across the chamber, missing him by inches. He dove behind wreckage, pulling in sharp breaths. Sparks flew as more shots hit the metal. The alien woman cried out, covering her ears from the noise. The human charged, swinging the metal shard. It struck the nearest soldier across the helmet, knocking him back. Another swung his weapon, but the human kicked it aside. He fought like a cornered beast, every move fueled by survival, every strike fueled by his promise to protect her. But more came. Their numbers grew, surrounding him. One blow struck his shoulder, sending pain shooting down his arm. Another soldier raised a weapon toward the alien woman. Her glowing eyes widened in terror. "No!" she cried, her voice breaking. The human roared and threw himself forward. He tackled the soldier before the shot could fire. The two crashed to the floor, struggling in the smoke and dust. With one final strike of the shard, the soldier went. Still, he staggered back to his feet, breathing hard. The alien woman stared at him, tears in her glowing eyes. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You risk everything, for me." He wiped blood from his face and gave her a steady look. "You're alive. That's what matters." But even as he said it, the truth pressed on him. The hunters would not stop. They would keep coming. They wanted her dead at any cost. And now, by saving her, he had become their target too. The chamber shook violently, part of the ceiling collapsing. Stars shone brighter through the cracks above. This wreck was breaking apart. He bent down, lifted her once more into his arms. Her head rested against his chest, but her eyes stayed open, glowing faintly. She whispered one last thing before her strength faded. "They hunt me because I refused the war." The human froze at her words. Refuse the war? His mind spun, but there was no time for questions. The wreck groaned, fire spread, and the hunters regrouped behind them. He held her tightly and ran toward the faint light of the stars above. The human stumbled through the broken corridors. The alien woman was still in his arms, her body weak, her glowing eyes half closed. Smoke filled the air, and the distant sound of enemy soldiers echoed behind them. Every step was heavy, but he did not stop. He could not stop. Her words repeated in his mind. "They hunt me because I refused the war." The meaning hit him like a blade. She was not just a prisoner, she was someone important, important enough that her choice could decide between peace and bloodshed. At last, he found a quiet corner where the wreck's walls had collapsed. The flames had not reached here yet. He set her gently down against the metal, giving her his oxygen mask again. She breathed deeply, her chest rising and falling with effort. For the first time, some color returned to her. Shimmering skin, he knelt beside her, his voice low but urgent. "Tell me, what do you mean you refused the war?" Her glowing eyes opened, searching his face. There was fear in her look, but also a strange calm. "You should not know this," she whispered. "They will kill you if you know." The human shook his head. "They're already trying to kill me. You might as well tell me why." She turned her face away, tears shimmering at the edges of her eyes. "My people, they wanted war. They wanted to strike first, To destroy your kind before you destroyed us." Her weak voice trembled, but she forced herself to continue. "I was their leader's daughter. I was supposed to command the fleets. But I said no. I said there must be peace." Her hands trembled as she clutched the oxygen mask. "For that, they called me traitor. They locked me in that chamber to suffocate slowly, to erase me quietly, and to make sure no one heard my voice again." The human felt his chest tighten. So that was the truth. She was not just any alien, she was royalty. Someone who had the power to start or stop a war, and she had chosen peace. But her own people had turned on her. His voice was rough, but steady. "They wanted war with humans, and you were the only one who stood in their way." She nodded weakly, tears slipping down her face. "Yes, I believed there could be another way. That humans and my people did not have to destroy each other, but they silenced me. They said one life is nothing compared to victory." Her voice cracked, her body trembling as if the memory itself was suffocating her again. "They left me there to die, alone, forgotten." The human clenched his fists, anger burning in his chest. This fragile woman had chosen peace, and for that choice, her own people had tried to erase her. He looked at her, his jaw tight. "You were right, war destroys everything, and anyone who kills you for wanting peace is no leader worth following." Her glowing eyes widened, surprised by his words. No one had ever defended her like that, not even her own blood. Her hand reached for his again, trembling but determined. "You saved me, but now you share my curse. They will not stop hunting us, not until I am dead. Or hidden forever." The human looked down at her fragile form, her hand in his, her glowing eyes pleading. He could see the weight she carried. Not just fear, not just pain, but guilt. The guilt of a choice that had placed a target on her back, and now on his too. The silence stretched between them. Only the distant echo of enemy patrols filled the air. Finally he spoke, his voice firm. "Then let them come. If they want to kill you for peace, they will have to go through me first." Her breath caught in her throat. She stared at him, shocked. "You would fight for me? Even though I am not human? Even though saving me could bring war to your people?" He nodded slowly. "I don't care what you are. I care about what you chose. You wanted peace. That makes you worth saving." For the first time, her lips curved into the faintest of smiles. It was weak, trembling, but real. Her glowing eyes softened. In that moment, the bond between them grew stronger, not just silent trust now, but something deeper, something like loyalty, something like hope. The wreck shook again, snapping them back to reality. The sound of boots echoed closer, louder. The hunters were sweeping the corridors, closing in on their trail. The alien woman pressed his hand, her voice urgent despite her weakness. "You must let me go. If they catch me with you, they will kill us both." The human shook his head fiercely. "No, I'm not leaving you. Not after everything you've told me. Not after everything you've been through." She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. There was no fear there, only determination, the same determination she once saw in her father. But where her father chose war, this human chose to protect. The ship groaned, fire spreading through the cracks. The walls bent under the weight of collapse. Time was running out. The human lifted her again into his arms. Her body was fragile, but her eyes burned with a new light. As he carried her forward, she whispered one last truth into his ear, a truth that chilled him more than any enemy's weapon. "There is one more reason they want me dead. It is not just because I refused the war. It is because I know the secret of who helped them build it." The human's blood ran cold. He remembered the torn human banner he had seen in the wreck, and suddenly, the pieces began to connect. The human ran through the collapsing wreck. The alien woman clung weakly to him, her head against his chest, her glowing eyes half open. Behind them, the hunters' voices rose louder, their weapons firing into the smoke-filled halls. Every blast lit the darkness like lightning. Every step shook the ship around them. He gritted his teeth. He could feel her breaths against his chest, faint but steady. She had confessed the truth. She had refused war, she had been betrayed, and she carried a secret that tied humans to her people's weapons. That secret alone made her the most dangerous life in the galaxy, and he was carrying her straight into the storm. The corridor ahead split into open air. The wreck had been torn apart, leaving a gaping hole into the night sky. Through it, the stars shone cold and endless. But it was no escape. Enemy ships circled above, their spotlights sweeping. Through the wreck like hunters searching for prey, the alien woman stirred weakly, her lips trembling against his ear. "They will not stop. They cannot let me live." Her words cut him, but before he could answer, the hunters found them. Armored figures stormed into the chamber, weapons glowing with deadly energy. Shouts echoed as they raised their guns, surrounding him on all sides. The human placed her gently down behind a broken beam. Her eyes widened in fear. "What are you doing?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Protecting you," he said, his voice firm. He picked up a heavy pipe from the wreckage, the closest thing to a weapon he could find. It was nothing against their rifles, but it was all he had. The soldiers advanced, their leader shouting orders. The human stood tall, pipe gripped tight, his chest heaving. He had faced battles before, but never like this. Never so hopeless, never so important. The first blast came. He dove aside, rolling across the floor. Another blast followed, searing the wall behind him. He swung the pipe, striking one soldier. Across the helmet, sparks flying as the man collapsed, but more came. Too many, the alien woman cried out, her voice breaking. "Stop! Leave him!" Her plea echoed across the chamber, but the soldiers did not listen. Their weapons turned toward her, their intent clear. The human's heart stopped. He saw the barrels glow, aimed at her fragile form. "No!" he roared, charging forward with all his strength. He struck one weapon aside, tackled another soldier to the ground. The fight turned desperate. Every move was pain. Every breath was fire. He was bleeding, bruised, broken. But he did not stop. He could not stop. A soldier raised, his weapon aimed straight at the alien woman. Her glowing eyes filled with terror, her voice cracked. "I can't breathe." The words struck something deep inside her. And then, the air itself changed. A low hum filled the chamber. The lights flickered, the walls vibrated. The soldier stopped, looking around in confusion, and then her eyes flared, glowing brighter than stars. A shockwave burst from her body. Energy rippled outward, invisible but crushing. The soldiers were thrown back like rag dolls, their weapons flying from their hands. The human staggered, shielding, his face from the blast. The air grew heavy, pressing down on his chest, stealing his breath. But the soldiers suffered more. They clawed at their helmets, gasping, choking, collapsing one by one. The alien woman sat trembling, her body glowing with unbearable light. Her voice rose, strange and powerful. It was not just sound. It was vibration, resonance, something beyond human understanding. Every word bent the air itself. Every cry struck like a weapon. The hunters fell, gasping, their bodies still. The chamber grew silent save for the echo of her power fading. And then she collapsed, her glow dimming, her body limp. The human rushed to her side. Her chest rose faintly, her breath shallow again. She had saved them both. But at what cost? He held her trembling frame, his own chest heaving. "Stay with me. Don't you dare give up now," he whispered, his voice breaking. Her eyes fluttered open, weak and dim. She managed a faint whisper. "My voice, it kills. It was never meant to be used. It burns me inside." Tears filled his eyes, though he tried to hide them. She had carried not only the burden of peace, but also a power that destroyed her each time she used it. She was fragile, not because she was weak, but because she was strong enough to carry pain no one else could. He pressed the oxygen mask back against her lips. Her breathing steadied, her body calming, but her strength was nearly gone. She leaned against him, whispering, "They will come again, and next time I may not have enough breath left." He held her close, his voice fierce. "Then I'll fight until my last breath for you. You will not die here, not like this." The wreck groaned once more, a deep rumble shaking the chamber. Above, the enemy ships moved closer, their lights sweeping across the broken walls. The battle was not over. This was only the beginning. The human lifted her again into his arms. Her glowing eyes flickered, half open, half closed. But as he carried her into the smoke and fire, her lips formed one last faint whisper. "You are my breath now." The word struck him deeper than any blade. And as the shadows closed in, he realized one truth. She was no longer just a stranger. She was his to protect, and nothing in the galaxy would take her breath away again. The human staggered through the wreck with the alien woman in his arms. His body was bruised and bleeding, but he did not stop. Every muscle ached, every breath burned, yet her faint glow, her shallow breaths against his chest, pushed him forward. Behind them, the chamber lay silent, filled with fallen hunters. Her hidden power had destroyed them, but it had nearly destroyed her too. Her voice, her deadly gift, had drained what little strength she had left. Her head rested weakly against him. Her glowing eyes half closed, he whispered as he carried her. "Stay with me. Just a little longer. We're almost free." The wreck shuddered, metal snapping like bones. Outside, enemy ships closed in, their searchlights cutting across the ruins. There was no more time. He had to reach his ship. It was their only chance. At last he reached a broken wall that opened into the night sky. Beyond it, far below, his small ship waited among the rocks, hidden from sight. But the way down was long and dangerous. One wrong step and they would both fall. The alien woman stirred, her lips trembling against his chest. "They are coming," she whispered, her voice weak but filled with dread. "They will not let us go." Her words proved true. A roar filled the sky as one enemy ship descended, its engines burning bright. From its sides, armored soldiers leapt down, weapons glowing in the dark. The hunters had returned stronger than before, and this time they had no intention of letting either of them escape. The human tightened his grip on her. His mind raced. He could fight, but not against so many. He could run, but not while carrying her. The choice weighed heavy. To survive, he might have to leave her behind. She must have seen the conflict in his eyes. Her trembling hand touched his chest. "Let me go," she whispered, tears glowing in her eyes. "If you save me, you will die. But if you leave me, you may live. It is better this way." The human's chest tightened. How could she ask him that? After everything, after the bond they had built, leave her? Abandon her to die at the hands of those who had already tried to erase her? No, he would not. His voice was rough but steady. "Listen to me, I didn't save you just to throw you away. If I die protecting you. That's my choice, not yours." Her eyes widened, tears falling freely now. She shook her head weakly. "Why? Why risk everything for me?" He looked down at her. "You wanted peace that makes you worth more than any war, and if I have to stand alone against the galaxy to keep you alive, so be it." The enemy soldiers closed in, their weapons raised. The human placed her carefully against the wall and stood tall. A broken pipe in his hand, his eyes burning with defiance. He was only one man, but he was unbroken. The first soldier lunged. The human struck with all his strength, the pipe slamming into armor. Pain shot through his arms, but he did not stop. He fought like a man with nothing left to lose, every strike, every breath, every roar fueled by one truth. She must live, but the soldiers kept coming. Blow after blow struck him. His body faltered, his knees bent. He fell to the ground, blood dripping from his mouth. The alien woman cried out, her voice breaking. "No!" Her glowing eyes burned bright once more. Her deadly voice rose, a tremor shaking the air. But before the power could rise again, he reached for her hand. "Don't," he whispered, his voice faint but fierce. "You'll kill yourself. Save your strength." Tears streamed down her face. She looked at him, broken and bleeding, still refusing to abandon her. Something inside her shattered, and something else was born. A fire, a choice, a strength she thought she no longer had. She pressed her forehead against his, her whisper soft but clear. Then we faced them together. Her glow flared, not as deadly as before, but steady. The soldiers hesitated, their weapons lowering slightly. For the first time, they saw not a prisoner and her rescuer, but two souls standing as one. In that moment, a spotlight cut through the smoke. It was his ship, rising from its hiding place, its engines burning bright. He had left it on remote command, and now it hovered above them, a rope descended, swaying in the wind. Their last chance, the human forced himself to his feet, every muscle screaming. He lifted her into his arms again. The soldiers shouted, firing wildly. Energy blasts scorched the ground around them. But he ran. He ran with the last of his strength, carrying her toward the rope. He grabbed it. Holding her tight against him, the ship lifted, pulling them into the night sky. The enemy soldiers roared below, their shots fading into the distance. But it was too late. They were gone. Inside the safety of his ship, he laid her down gently. Her glowing eyes opened faintly, her lips trembling. "You chose me," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and sorrow. "You chose me, over your life." He smiled weakly, blood still on his lips. "No, I chose us." She closed her eyes, tears falling. Her hand found his, holding it tight. And for the first time since he had found her in the dark, her breath came steady. Not forced, not broken, but full, alive, free. The stars stretched endless before them. Behind them, enemies burned with rage. Ahead, the future burned with uncertainty. But as his ship carried them into the unknown, one truth remained. This was not the end. This was only the beginning of something that would shake the galaxy forever.